Welcome to the gray area right here on 105.3 The Fan. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. You can subscribe to the 105.3 The Fan YouTube channel and also subscribe to my YouTube channel at Kevin Gray Sports. You can catch me every single weekend on your home of the Cowboys and Rangers 105.3 The Fan with my partner, the two-time Hall of Famer Chris Arnold. The Dallas Cowboys maybe missed out on a guy. Urban Meyer was hired as the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars and will take over a program and a head coach in Doug Marrone, who was 25-44 during his time with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and takes over a program that has a boatload of cash to be able to spend on free agents, the number one overall pick, i.e. Trevor Lawrence, and an organizational group that is willing to spend money on improving facilities at the request of one Urban Meyer himself. We know that Urban Meyer, who compiled a 187-32 record throughout his college football career at Bowling Green, Utah, Florida, and of course at Ohio State, a three-time national champion back in 2006 and 2008 with the Florida Gators, and then in 2014 with the Ohio State Buckeyes and some dude named Ezekiel Elliott. Urban Meyer has put himself in the rarefied air as one of the greatest coaches in college football history. Now takes the leap in joining the ranks of the National Football League, much like how a guy one time did for the Dallas Cowboys in one Jimmy Johnson. And it begs the question, should the Cowboys have hired Urban Meyer instead of Mike McCarthy? That's a difficult question to answer because obviously, on these airways on 105.3 The Fan, if you listen to Jerry Jones very carefully when he was looking for his new head coach, he told you the kind of head coach that he wanted. A guy who had experience, who could walk into an organization with a championship already in hand, with the kind of experience to lead a team that had not been able to get itself over the hump and walk into a situation tailor-made for a coach to be able to hit the ground running. And he thought that Mike McCarthy was going to be that guy. And I'm not going to be the guy to sit here and say, look, I was one of the first, if not the first, to say that Mike McCarthy should be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, just because it was based on the criteria that Jerry Jones had laid out himself as far as who he wanted as a football coach. There were other rumored names out there like Lincoln Riley and others who could potentially have taken this job for the Dallas Cowboys, but they really only interviewed two guys, Marvin Lewis and Mike McCarthy, and of course they settled on Mike McCarthy. And we know what happened throughout this year, an unprecedented year with a pandemic having been dealt with, the injuries and adversity that this team dealt with in terms of losing its franchise quarterback in one Rain Dakota Prescott, a historically bad defense that gave up more points than any other team in franchise history for the Dallas Cowboys, and questions about the talent surrounding it. And now even one of its assistants potentially interviewing for the Philadelphia Eagles head coaching job in one Kellen Moore. So there's been a lot of things that have happened and transpired under Mike McCarthy. But what it makes me think about is what Jimmy Johnson was able to do, obviously, with the Dallas Cowboys in 5 seasons, going 44-36, winning 2 Super Bowls, turning around a program that at one point was one of the worst in all of the National Football League after the transition from Tom Landry to Jimmy Johnson after Jerry Jones, of course, bought the franchise famously back in the late 80s. Jimmy Johnson understood one thing, how to evaluate talent and to build a culture that cultivated that talent to become one of the best organizations in all of the National Football League. And much like how Urban Meyer did in college, you can say what you want about what happened at the University of Florida, over 30 players being arrested, and at times the job overwhelming Urban Meyer to the point where he had to retire for health reasons. And then once he did come back to the college game, reinvigorated, going to the Ohio State University, winning another national championship there, and having dealt with some of the things with the Zach Smith situation, obviously, where he was suspended for 3 games, and the adversity and turmoil at times that Urban Meyer left his programs with. What he was, though, was a supernova of a head coach who knew how to build cultures and programs and win with those cultures and programs inside of college football. Well, you say, Kevin, it's easy to do that in college football when you have the pick of the litter and you can go sit in a kid's living room and recruit him and bring him to your particular school because you could sit championship rings on the table and says, are you coming or no? Obviously, that's a lot different in the National Football League, but one thing that Urban Meyer understands about coaching, building programs, and winning is that you have to do it with a consistent ferocity that shows that not only do you have a winning program and culture being built, but you can consistently do it over time no matter how short your time is in college or what may be a short time in the National Football League. Jimmy Johnson did the same thing, much like how Urban Meyer was able to do in his time in college football. His ability to identify talent, cultivate it, and then recruit that talent to be able to come to the Ohio State, Florida, Utah, where, of course, he had the number 1 overall pick and one Alex Smith, who's gone on to have a long career in the National Football League. Jimmy Johnson did the same for the Dallas Cowboys. And while Jerry Jones is at a point where he is at 78 years old and doesn't necessarily wasn't looking to have a college coach come in to rebuild a situation where it didn't necessarily need to be rebuilt based on what you saw on paper, maybe Jerry Jones could have went back to the future and hired a guy in Urban Meyer who would have brought in an innovative, fresh face and new ideas. And more importantly, what we've seen from the Cowboys over the last several years, our very own Mike Fisher tagging the hashtag 53 brands, is that a culture for the Dallas Cowboys seems to be waning inside of that locker room. A culture of individualism where you got the hot boys and swiping going on and all the things that befit America's team from a promotion and a marketing standpoint, but hasn't translated onto the football field in terms of wins and consistent success for the better part of 25 years. More recently, the 10 years plus that Jason Garrett was here, and now obviously the first year under Mike McCarthy and the unsuccessful season that he had in his first year as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not saying that Urban Meyer would have turned the thing around right away, but what it would have done is infused a new set of ideas, culture, and a fresh perspective that Jerry Jones maybe could have used and needed for a franchise that seems to be stuck in neutral, given the visibility and being the most visible in all of pro sports. The most valuable franchise in all of pro sports also hasn't seen the kind of success to buoy even more financial windfall, seeing that they haven't won a championship in 25 years, haven't even made a conference title game in over 20 plus years. Urban Meyer would have at least given the Cowboys organization a shot in the arm. The excitement would have been palpable if Urban Meyer had been hired here. But more so than anything, it could have been a turn back to the future with respect to how Jimmy Johnson got down. Yes, Jimmy Johnson was very tough on his players, was very hard on his players. But one thing that every single Cowboy, for the most part, has talked about over the years since Jimmy Johnson has left, the Michael Irvins, the Troy Aikmans, the Nate Newtons of the world, all those who played under Jimmy Johnson, is that he got the most out of them and he knew how to coach and respect the players that were around him. Urban Meyer has cultivated a ton of NFL talent, especially one that we have on our very own football team and one Ezekiel Elliott, who won a national championship. These are the kinds of things that Urban Meyer could build. Yes, at times he left the program in destruction, but more so than anything, more times than not, he left the programs that he left much better than what he did when he got to them. Florida became a mess after he left at Florida. Ohio State, he was able to leave a solid foundation for Ryan Day, who's gone on to make national championship games and those kinds of things. The Jacksonville Jaguars are probably going to be much better off whenever Urban Meyer leaves Jacksonville. He's 90 miles away, 90-plus miles away from Gainesville, where he ultimately had a success of winning 2 national championships. And his ability to adapt and be malleable to the players that he had. You remember with Tim Tebow and Chris Leak and what they did at the University of Florida, winning the 2 quarterback system there. And then, of course, going to Ohio State and recruiting the mess out of Ohio State, bringing in talents like Cardell Jones and Ezekiel Elliott, any number of players that you can think of who have gone on to have terrific careers in the National Football League. Urban Meyer is a culture builder, a winner, and one who understands that the most important thing that you can do in building a new culture is surrounding yourself with individuals who have an understanding of how that culture should be built, and all of them pushing forward toward the same goal. Now, I don't get the idea of hiring Scott Linehan as your offensive coordinator on purpose. That's not a good idea. So Urban Meyer might want to check that before he decides to make that decision. But other than that, if he continues to build a staff and a culture that is on paper what it needs to be, not to mention that they're going to get Trevor Lawrence, the Jacksonville Jaguars are off to a terrific start. And maybe the Cowboys should have hired Urban Meyer. I don't know. But for now, the Cowboys got the guy whom they think will lead them to another championship after he did so in winning a championship for the Green Bay Packers inside of AT&T Stadium. Do I think the Cowboys should have hired Urban Meyer? Yeah, why not? But based on what Jerry Jones told us, I knew who he was going to hire and the best coach that fit that resume at the time. It was Mike McCarthy. But hey, what do I know? I don't run an NFL franchise. All these other 32 guys do, and women do. But hey, we'll see how Urban Meyer fares in Jacksonville with respect to how he will get down as their head coach and if they can find a general manager that he can work with to ensure that they are all working on the same page and vision together. And the Dallas Cowboys, well, you know, I got Mike McCarthy. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to subscribe to the 105.3 The Fan YouTube channel right here at 105.3 The Fan. We'll talk to you later. Peace.